Hello, this is Abigail Barella with Sparkle and Shine Guidance, and this is your 2026 Astrological Year Ahead Workshop. So I'm recording this in December 2025. Of course, because of that, I'm probably going to have some little bits to say about December 2025, very minimal. And then we're going to be going over the 2026 year overview. I feel like I really need to point out some key big transits happening. Then we'll go into all the Mercury retrogrades, the month by month playbook here. And I highly encourage you to have a notebook to take your own notes based on what I'm saying, like what comes up for you, things that you want to look into later, yada, yada. And also have your chart available when you're watching this so that you can look at different things, pause it, kind of dive into your stuff, and then come back. So 2026, it is a 1 in numerology. It's all about freedom, fresh starts, turning a new page, a new book even. And it's about this primal energy. It's like stepping into the light. So a lot of things coming into consciousness, coming into awareness. 2026 is going to be a fast moving year. And for those of you that I've talked to, time and time again, people keep telling me, different clients keep telling me how hard it is to track time, even from back to 2020, how these 5 years since then, and now we'll be coming into 2026, have been so hard to track and just moving so fast. And that's not going to change. It's a really good time to get your head straight in this December time period, to get your head straight, because it's going to be moving even faster in 2026. I do want to say a little woo stuff here, and this is what I'm going to say. Some of the spell work that's been done on the collective, the lapsing is coming up, and the re-upping is going to be happening in February of 2026. And it's so important to get your internal world sorted out, pay less attention to what's happening in the collective, stay in your own lane, stay in your own energy, because as those things are wearing off, and before we come into the re-upping of those spells and the spell work, it's an ideal time to really get clarity about where you want to move forward, where you want your family to move forward, all of these different things, so that you stay clear of that as best you can. So yeah, time shifting, we all can feel that, and it's really important to stay in your own energy. This is why I have Bitches Shine Brighter, my energetic boundary setting class. Oh my goodness. Let me just, that's why I have Bitches Shine Brighter, my energetic boundary setting class. So 2026, 1 in numerology. Typically the 1 is ruled by the sun. I'm feeling a lot of the Mars energy, Martian energy for 2026. And a lot of that has to do with the biggest transit that we are having in 2026 is a conjunction between Neptune and Saturn in Aries, okay? And that first really moment of Aries. And so looking at where that early degree Aries is in your chart is so important for January, February, March, and on, but those first few months. And I also want to say, looking at where the 29th degree of Pisces is in your chart, because that's where you're being asked to let go, release, allow for some type of death, so that you can be reborn with this energy. The Saturn Neptune conjunction happens about every 36 years. So this is pretty major. I have a whole other video on that specific topic, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but I will just say, Saturn is the strict disciplinary restrictor, and Neptune is the no boundaries, no bounds, interdimensional melding and melting energy. And so, collectively, we're going to see a lot of weird wackiness around them because it's starting a whole new 36-year cycle. That's what I say about the spell work, because it's an opportune time to seed some things. And I want you to be aware of that and doing your own intention setting so that you're not caught up in that drama cycle. Okay, so that I would say is the biggest thing with 2026. That's why I say 2026 in general is huge for all signs. I will say that if you have Aquarius or Aquarius placements, it's also going to be massive because we have the North Node moving into Aquarius in July. That's really big news. And we're going to have some kind of weirdness with that cycle because the North Node will be in Aquarius, the South Node is going to be in Leo, and then we also have Jupiter expanding that South Node in Leo. Excuse me. So yeah, we have the South Node is going to be conjunct Jupiter at some point in 2026. I can tell you the exact date because I have all that, but I don't have it in here. So I'll get to that. But also we have Pluto unfurling, unpacking, making a mess over there in Aquarius. This is like the age of Aquarius, right? Like all of the things with AI and those different things are going to be amplified when the North Node moves into Aquarius in July. So this is a fresh start, new beginning year, and it's also in a lot of ways a transitionary year with the eclipses. We're moving from this North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, into this more fixed cycle of North Node in Aquarius, South Node in Leo. And with that, so I'm going to talk about the eclipses now. We have a very powerful total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees of Virgo on March 3rd. And that is going to be the last one that we will have in Virgo. So we're closing out that cycle and then we're opening to this new thing. And as an initiation, we're going to have a partial solar eclipse in Aquarius in February. So as we're getting that conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, we are also going to be getting this initiation energy with the solar eclipse. So February 17th, the solar eclipse in Aquarius, it's a partial. And then we move into the Saturn square Neptune energy. And then we roll right into a Mercury retrograde. So it's a busy month. February is very busy. I'm going to talk about the more busy months and the more like integration months. February is definitely a busy one. The other like really massive thing that's happening this year is Chiron is moving from Aries into Taurus June 19th. So looking at those first degrees of Taurus, where is that in your chart? Because that's going to be activated. And I want to say we've been going through the cycle, and currently as I'm recording this, Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, but you know, Uranus is moving out of Taurus in 2026 and into Gemini. And then Chiron moves into Taurus. And I always find this so fascinating with the astrology. It's like Uranus came in and shook everything up in Taurus since 2018, has shaken up your Taurus house. If you are a Taurus, you've been going through this. If you have a lot of Taurus placements, you've been going through this. Uranus shook everything up, right? And so it created a lot of friction. It created a lot of chaos. And it was necessary. There was a lot of changes that needed to happen in your Taurus house. And now Chiron comes in and is mending and suturing and healing and really being with what needs to be with in Taurus. Now, some of you will be moving out of your Chiron return if you had Chiron in Aries. Some of you are going to be moving into your Chiron return in Taurus. That's a great time to work with me. It's very powerful and very uncomfortable. So that's one thing to just keep in mind. Okay, and then the other thing that you probably know is that Jupiter, as I just said, is moving into Leo. This is happening at the end of June. Definitely looking at this as a kind of interesting Jupiter cycle because, again, of that South Node in Leo as well. But it's going to be expanding on the sun. It's going to be expanding on, you know, our consciousness and our creativity, and all the fun things, hobbies, things like that. Now with the South Node, it's also expanding on our past and things that now we've gained wisdom on to do things differently, things that we've grown in different areas. So if you are a Leo, it's very clear that you have been going through it, are going to continue to be going through it because Pluto is a slow moving sign and it's opposing your Leo stuff, okay? But you've been going through it And now 2026, you're going to be feeling a bit more freedom. With that freedom comes responsibility. And so the South Node is making sure that you're moving forward with an intact moral code or intuition on what's most important for you to move forward on, if that makes sense. I wanted to use a different word, but it's not like coming to me in a way that I want it to quick enough. So basically, you're being given a little bit of freedom and a little bit of space, and that wisdom that you've gained these last few years of going through it, you are going to have, the moral code is just going to be intact in a different way. So if you're feeling that, you're being given this opportunity to do things different and learn from your mistakes, or mistakes that have just happened that aren't your fault. So yeah, let's go through the month by month, and then I'll talk about the Mercury retrogrades, and then I'll talk about Venus retrograde. Maybe I'll talk about Venus retrograde next. Venus retrograde is another huge thing that's happening in 2026. And it's also one of the reasons why it's so massive is it's happening mostly in Scorpio. It's happening a little bit in Libra too, but because it's in the first 8 degrees of Scorpio, it carries with it a lot of depth and a lot of the fixed energy that we're seeing this year. So we're seeing Jupiter moving into Leo. We're seeing Chiron move into Taurus. We're seeing the North Node move into Aquarius, the South Node move into Leo. And then boom, we're having this Venus retrograde in Scorpio. And so, fixed signs have been going through it, or again, are going to continue to be going through it in 2026. But it doesn't mean it's all bad, I often talk about squares in astrology like the tension on a trampoline. It allows you to bounce higher, There's a lot of opportunities in 2026 if you're a fixed sign, or if you have a lot of fixed energy in your chart. I will say, though, that this Venus retrograde in Scorpio is intense, and it's typically pretty painful for the heart, but it's necessary. So there's a necessary growth that's going to be happening in October to November of 2026. Now, that's a ways off, but everything else leading up to that is really preparing you to do that work. And it's also an opportunity. Venus retrograde is a great opportunity to see how far you've come and do some healing, do some inner work so that you can go even further. So that's the permission that Venus retrograde offers us. Venus in Scorpio is intense on its own. So a retrograde there is really intense, and that'll be happening this year. Okay, so let's go through month by month. I really feel as though January 2026 is the prep month. It's like, lace up your shoes, do your stretches, eat well, sleep well as best you can, because what's coming next is bonkers. It's like bananas. And really it'll start when, I'm on the wrong page. Really it'll start when Neptune moves back into Aries, which will be on January 26th. And from then on, we're off to the races, which is interesting because we'll also be moving into the year of the horse. That will be happening, here we go. That will be happening at the solar eclipse in Aquarius, February 17th. So not only will we be in an eclipse energy with that initiation into the Aquarius eclipse, but it's also when the year of the horse, the fire horse, starts. So that's really when we're seeing like, whoa, tons of energy. And it's going to be a bit overwhelming from then through March, basically. So February, March are really bananas. And we have that solar eclipse. And then we have that total lunar eclipse at 12 degrees of Virgo. And this is like the last train's leaving. Like Virgo South Node is like, hey, have you learned all of the past mistakes? Have you learned all of the things that need to be cleared out for you to move into this next cycle? Because it's a blood moon. It's like purifying, cleansing, clearing. It's a full moon, and it's a lunar eclipse on the South Node. So it's very much about clearing out the past, letting the past go to the past, and not bringing it into the future. Then We have Jupiter moving direct. We have Mercury going retrograde and direct during that time. And it's just a busy, busy month. And even the spring equinox, I looked at the chart for that. And I'm like, that looks intense. And like to see that, I often look to the spring equinox chart more so than like the New Year's chart, because I feel like it's really at the astrological new year that it's going to give me information about the year. And because it was so intense, I was like, okay, that's good to know. So January is your preparation for February, March being pretty intense, pretty bonkers. And so January is a good time to work with me and get all your affairs in order, get all your things together, because what's coming next is pretty intense. April, after February, March, April, and May tend to chill out a bit. Of course, there's things still happening. Uranus moves back into Gemini in April. There's a lot of other random things happening, but aren't big news. And then May, Pluto goes retrograde in 5 degrees of Aquarius. So, you know, there's things happening, but those months are to like recalibrate. Okay, woo, little like breather. Because then we get into June and July, and June and July and August are really, really wild, like really wild. So much so that I really feel like it's going to feel like a totally different reality by the time we get to July. So in June, not only do we have another Mercury retrograde starting at the end of the month, but we also have Jupiter moving into Leo at the end of the month. Both of those things happen on June 29th. We also have Chiron, as I said, moving into Taurus. We have Uranus squaring the North Node. Those two things are before, so June 12th and June 19th. And then we move into July, and July is also pretty crazy. July 1st, we have Jupiter squaring Chiron. You know, because we have so much of this fixed energy, that means that they're going to be squaring each other, right? We're going to be having these experiences of like, bumping into things, like conflict, chaos, and then figuring it out. I said it's like the springs on a trampoline. It's like creating that tension so that you can go higher. So fixed signs, I'm sorry, but you kind of need that because you're so stubborn. You kind of need that tension. You need to like have that conflict so you can jump higher. And that's what this year is really all about. So yeah, then, so we have Jupiter then opposing Pluto in July. And then we have the North Node and the South Node moving into Aquarius, North Node, South Node into Leo, July 26th. And right after that, like what I find is so fascinating is all these big things that seem unrelated are happening at the same time. So, you know, the things that are happening in February, March around the eclipses, then we move into like the eclipses July, August. So, or, you know, the nodes moving in July, and then August 12th, we have a total solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Leo. Super powerful. And it's thankfully going to be really one that's like a lot about bringing the gifts that you have learned over the last few years into the future. And so that's pretty powerful to see that. And then on August 27th, we have our last Pisces eclipse. It's a partial, and it's at 4 degrees of Pisces. So looking at where that is in your chart is going to be helpful during that time. And then we move into October. Well, September. We move into September, and September's a rest month. It's a rest and integrate and a good time to work together to prepare yourself for what's coming in October. So October, Venus retrograde starts October 3rd, right off the bat. It's just like boom. And then we move into a Mercury retrograde. I'm going to give you all the dates for the Mercury retrograde. And then Venus retrograde moves into Libra. So we have the Venus retrograde starting in Scorpio, moving into Libra on October 24th. Jupiter opposes the North Node, conjuncts the South Node, November 11th. And then Mercury goes direct November 13th, same day, Venus goes direct. That's what I mean. Like, it's just so powerful, these things that come together. And then I feel as though December, there's things happening, you know, but December is really preparing us for the crazy banana pants of 2027. 2027 is wild. It's wild on a whole nother level. It's not to say that 2026 isn't also wild, but when I look ahead and when I'm like, wow, the thing, so it's all stepping stones to prepare you in doing the work is where it's at. Doing the work, continuing to do the work, working with an astrologer this year. It doesn't have to be me, but I definitely recommend you work with an astrologer this year because there's just a lot. And it's not only just like a lot to deal with, but it's a lot to grow with. It's a lot to flourish with. It's a lot to like use to your advantage. So I'm excited about this year. I wanted to tell you about different things that I have going on this year, but first let me talk about the Mercury retrogrades. They're in water. So we're in this time where we have a lot of fire this year. We have a lot of energy this year. We have a lot of power this year. And then we have the Mercury retrogrades, and they're all in water. We went through this period this last year where we're moving from fire Mercury retrogrades into the water. So we started with some fire and then it moved into the water. And now as we move into 2026, it's all in water. And I feel like that's a blessing, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're in it, because it can feel really like you're underwater when you're in a Mercury retrograde that's in water. But we need it. We need to have the time and the ability to be with our emotions this year in a different way. And because things are moving so fast, we need those integration times. So those integration times are a great time to naturally try to not do as much because they're all happening. All the Mercury retrogrades are happening when there's a bunch of other stuff happening. It's not during any of those rest months that I talked about. Because of that, it's really important that you not overbook yourself or overdo things during that time. So those times are February 26th to March 20th in Pisces. And also if you have planets or placements in these signs, of course, you're going to want to pay attention to that. The next one, June 29th in Cancer. And the last one is October 23rd in, wait, is that a 3? October 23rd in Scorpio. So, you know, being aware of that and knowing kind of, I'll put those exact dates below and when they end, because I didn't do that for the Scorpio Cancer one. Yeah, like knowing that is going to be really helpful because it's a time where you're meant to really spend time with yourself and be with yourself and integrate and understand. So I have an amazing offer. I've never done it in this way before. For 2026, you can hire me as your astrologer for the year for less than $1,000, which is pretty mind-blowing. This is only available to December 14th, which is very soon. But it will be available on a payment plan as well throughout December, as many as spots there are still available. So we'll see how that goes. Now, what this entails is 2 different recorded readings with me a year ahead, which is like your tarot and your astrology for 2026. It's super powerful and amazing to receive that and to like use that as your guidance. A solar return reading at your birthday month. So that reading comes on its own and you get to listen to it and just like get inspired for your year. And then monthly calls, astrology calls with me. So we can go into your astrology. You can tell me about what is most important for you to be working with that month and we'll do it together. So yeah, I highly recommend that. Reach out. It's something new that I haven't ever offered in this way before. And I feel inspired for 2026 to be offering this. Maybe it's all my Leo and the South Node moving into my sign. It's like kind of got to like bring some energy into this year in a different way. And I'm excited about that. I also just have one-off readings that you're welcome to get with me. And the recorded year ahead reading is something that you can just order on your own as well. So if you're not interested in getting a year of support with me and you just want that reading, that's available as well. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, leave a comment below, let me know how you're feeling and what you're noticing about this end of 2025, moving into 2026. And yeah, I'm really grateful that you're here, and I appreciate you paying attention to this video.